was so much hoopla about the return of Arrested Development. And now we're hearing that there probably will be a season 5 at some point. But meanwhile, Mitch Hurwitz did an interview this past week where he said that he is currently working on a re-edit of season 4 in chronological order.
Right. And it begs the question, why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that? Is it because maybe you're not 100% pleased with season 4? And
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it.
I have to imagine that it's a combination of that he knows that the audience wasn't 100% pleased, which maybe in retrospect made him not 100% pleased.
Right.
Because I think if the audience had been like, we love it, he'd probably be like, good enough for jazz.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were a lot of complicated factors in terms of their schedules and things like that forced him to structure it the way that he did. And maybe what he's trying to do is do a restructure that he feels like will work as a more cohesive, coherent, funnier, tighter season. I don't know, but I'm not sure that the structure was fully the problem.
I don't think it was. And again, to accept that season 4 existed at all, you have to accept that the characters were going to be these standalone episodes because of the scheduling. Just they cannot get those actors together. But what you said about maybe as being like a tighter edit, that was one of my biggest issues with it. And I didn't hate the season. There's some stuff I thought was very funny, but the episodes were too damn long. And it was a fascinating thing to see, as much as we say like, oh, network restrictions, and it totally sucks that they have to make it exactly 22. And I think now it's like 20 and a half or something, whatever they have to make it for that running time, and how confining that can be, and how there's great scenes cut. With the ability to just let it go as long as they wanted, there were episodes that seriously dragged.
Yeah, they did. And we've had this discussion a little bit before where, like, I'm definitely of the mind that the creative process really only benefits from a healthy degree of friction.
Yeah.
Not toxic, horrible, not on the same page.
Sure.
You have to compromise your entire vision friction. Because we've seen where that happens too, where everything's sort of manufactured. But I think a healthy degree of confinement actually helps the creative process. It makes you think of better solutions. It makes you be that much tighter. There can be no room for excess.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to get the exact joke that you want in that time, and it's got to work. And I think that killing your darlings can be a really good thing. Look, if there's any person that needs to like kill more darlings, it's me. My stuff runs way too long. I think if you've read it, you know that, and so do I. I'm working on it. But I think that those confines can help strengthen the creative process. So without it, there's nobody to say no. There's nobody to tell you can lift that joke. It doesn't really even work anyway. Yeah,
and I think, you look at Arrested Development, and it seemed like there needed to be several times episodes where they said, if you cut 10 minutes out of this could be like a tighter, funnier episode.
Yeah.
I have some, actually, I haven't even ran these, and I'm going to probably run them. I am going to run them. In fact, I vow right now, this week, I've got some quotes from Dan Harmon talking about the new season of Community. He might have also said this in other interviews because everyone's asking him about it right now while he's promoting his documentary and whatnot. And he said, again, this is going to come up a lot with Yahoo because they're not going to have the time restriction either. But he has said, like, he knows that he needs to kind of edit himself and not be like, this can be a 45-minute episode.
But it's hard to edit yourself.
But it's very hard. Yeah, and it's hard to find that balancing act of I'm so happy I don't have to make it just a tight 22. I can have that one other scene that's great versus I can make it 7 extra scenes.
Yeah.
And they might not all be great scenes, I
know.
Or they might hurt the flow of the show,
I think it's really hard to do that for yourself. I think it's hard to see the forest for the trees sometimes, and that's where these people come in and they tell you need to get rid of this, this, and that. Maybe sometimes it's actually some people that have some decent ideas, and have something they can contribute, and maybe only one of the 5 notes works. We'll just take that one.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the thing that made the episode that much better. Showrunners and creators have talked about this a lot, but the same thing happens to directors when feature film directors that are way too empowered, that are given final cut when maybe they shouldn't be, and then they make a 3-hour Transformers movie.
Right. Or look, someone I'm a big fan of, but I completely agree with Judd Apatow needs to better edit his stuff.
Yes.
And it already, like, a 40-Year-Old Virgin is a great movie. I still remember thinking, this might be a little longer than it needs to, but it was so great. And then I watched the DVD, director's cut, unrated cut that went on, a lot longer. And I was like, man, it's, killing the pacing of this movie.
Right.
And it doesn't mean it's not funny stuff in and of itself, but things need to have a flow. And I mean, I remember when they announced they were cutting the Rogue stuff from X-Men, and there were a lot of people saying, but it's just like 5 minutes? Like, just leave it in. And it's like, that could have a big effect.
It could have a huge effect. It could suddenly throw you out of the entire movie and the flow and the pacing, and suddenly you're like, now you disconnect. And once you disconnect from the story, it's so much harder to get you back in.
Yeah.
And good for him. He was probably attached to it too.
Right.
And he knew
it was a huge deal to cut Anna Paquin from the movie. Yeah.
And knew it was a huge deal, and he probably had sentimental attachments to it, among other things.
Right.
And he knew it had to go.
Yeah.
So I think that's really hard to do on your own and by yourself. I think it's a lot to ask of someone to do on their own. I'll be interested to see what the recut looks like, if it is any tighter.
Yeah, and we don't know almost any specifics about it yet, like distribution either. I assume Netflix, like here on Netflix, here's like a different version of Arrested Development season 4. But I think, I mean, it can only benefit it because when that season came out, I binged it like most people, and I was I think that's one of the things that most affected me, being like, this is not working as well, is the pacing. And binging several episodes of the season 1 through 3, it just flew by, and this one was kind of like a trudging through sometimes because the episodes would go on too long.
Yeah, so we'll see if it's any tighter, and we'll see what lessons he maybe has learned going into the potential next season.
Yeah.